Hello, welcome back to the channel 12-Step Guide with Troy O. Today, we're going to do step 6 in the Alcoholics Anonymous Big Book. And I want to jump right into it and then critically evaluate some of it, and we'll see where it goes. So we know in step 5 in the previous videos, if you haven't seen those, you may not know what I'm talking about. At the end of step 5, you were encouraged to review the first 5 proposals, make sure you were happy with them. And then, in the original book, page 88, and into action. And then we begin the first part of step 6. So if we can answer this review of the first 5 proposals, if we can answer to our satisfaction, we're happy with it, we then look at step 6. We have emphasized, let's place special importance on it, willingness. We're doing it by choice, as being indispensable, absolutely necessary. So we have emphasized willingness as being indispensable. We are now ready to let God remove from us all the things which we have admitted are objectionable, the character defects we discovered and wrote down in step 5, things that we want to change in ourselves. Can He now take them all? Every one? Question mark. Should we still cling to something we will not let go? We ask God to help us be willing. So that's it for step 6 in the Big Book. There you have it. Cleared it right up for you, right? And go ahead and take care of that. The truth is, there's not much there. It was a tremendously broad stroke, and it was without specifics. We're not done with step 6, I assure you, and neither is Bill. I want to spend the rest of the time today, we're going to visit more pieces about it, foundational. In 98, I told you I wrote a step book. I'm going to read step 6, what I knew in 98. Today, it's not long. Because later, Bill wrote the step book, and he had plenty to say about step 6 then. And I want to impress upon you right now, step 6 is a very important step. At this point, it was simply underdeveloped. So what's up with that, right? Okay. So Bill got sober in 1935, starts Alcoholics Anonymous in 1935, about that. Works on the Big Book, probably about 3 years sober. It takes a while to write a book like that. And releases it probably 4 years sober. Now he's wrote this tremendous book, 3-4 years sober. I've been dicking around because I wasn't encouraged to do the steps like he did, and I took the slow boat. Not by choice. I would have been willing. Just got a lot of bad information, and that's a part of this. I want to clear that up for the willing. So when he released the step book 14 years after the 12 steps were released, that's 17 years after the program developed, because we'll look at that a little bit more in a minute. The 12 steps didn't exist in 1935, is what I'm trying to say. So I want to learn more about what we can in the Big Book about step 6. For example, where did step 6 come from? I was able to identify earlier that Bill couldn't credit step 1 to the Oxford groups. He had already long since taken step 1. And we have looked over some of the other work that he did, and we're going to read that today at the hospital with EBT, and we can find some of the other steps there. And so the question being, where did step 6 come from? I want you to have a natural understanding of step 6 and how it evolved. So what I want to do is I want to apply the 5th step concept to Bill's story. We're going to look at what we do know in an effort to discover what we don't know. And that is to answer this question: where did step 6 come from? All right, so let's slow this down a little bit and let's build step 6 together. The more we understand the foundation of it, when we go into step 6 in the step book, the better our understanding will be. So, what is step 6? We're entirely ready to have God remove all these defects of character. Now, previously we've discussed various concepts around defects of character. And the individual has their own understanding of what God is for them, that whatever that is for you. So, what are the origins of step 6? To understand that, we're going to go back to Bill's story in the big book. I want to recap a little bit before we get started. At the end of step 5, I talked about 2 different tracks: track A and track B. Both of these tracks were going to run through step 4 and 5 side by side. And I do have more than a one-track mind, apparently. Understanding step 6. Let's start with just the briefest understanding of where Bill got started. First, he took step 1 well before ABT met with him. He had been hospitalized twice for alcoholism before that. Quite frankly, he didn't need Ebby to help him understand he had a problem. He already knew that. But briefly, like myself, he had admitted complete defeat at the time Bill was observing ABT. So that was his step 1. And then they were fighting kind of with step 2, and Ebby's, why don't you choose your own conception of God? And Bill liked that. It was only a matter of being willing to believe in a power greater than myself. Nothing more was required of me to make my beginning. Bill was observing this tremendous power coming through EBT. Bill became willing to believe in this power. This power that Bill believed in was God speaking through EBT. So let's move it up a little bit. We're getting to step 6 here. At the hospital, I was separated from alcohol for the last time. Treatment seemed wise, for I showed signs of delirium tremens. Now, there's more reasons to go to treatment these days. Treating the mental, separating yourself from alcohol, putting distance, changing your environment temporarily, things like that. Bill's now at the hospital. And now we're going to confront 2 paragraphs. The first paragraph is track A, dealing with internal issues. The second paragraph is going to cover the same 4 and 5 at the same time period, but it's going to be dealing with external issues. So in track A, he's going to speak of steps 4, 5, and 6, whereas in track B, he will speak of steps 4, 5, and 8. So let's look at that a little more to better understand that. So now Bill's going to take step 3 in treatment. First, taking step 3 is building on step 2, building from step 2. In step 2, he came to believe in this power. Step 3, he's making a decision to trust this power. And here's Bill's version. Yours may be similar, it may be different. There I humbly offered myself to God, as I then understood him, to do with me as he would. I placed myself unreservedly under his care and direction. I admitted for the first time that of myself I was nothing, that without him I was lost. So there's Bill's step 3. Now, he's going to get into step 4 and 5. I ruthlessly faced my sins. It's a very quick, again, 2 different tracks here. We're going to cover the same material in the next paragraph. You're going to get into a little more about how. Now he's going to get into step 6. So I ruthlessly faced my sins, step 4 and 5, and became willing. There's a willingness in track A to address internal conflict, and became willing to have my newfound friend, God, take them away, root and branch. And just for the briefest concept of step 7, as this would have been backdated, it didn't really exist yet. I have not had a drink since. I say backdated, he wouldn't have known that yet at the hospital. Now let's get into the track B paragraph addressing external conflict. My schoolmate visited me, that's Ebby T, at the hospital, and I fully acquainted him with my problems and deficiencies. We made a list of people I had hurt, step 8 begun in step 4, or toward whom I felt resentment. Again, track A and track B travels right through this. Everything he said in the last paragraph is also covered here. But now this is where track B starts to separate. I express my entire willingness. This is track B willingness. This is external willingness to make amends to others. I express my entire willingness to approach these individuals, admitting my wrong. Never was I to be critical of them. I was to right. In this case, it's to correct. I was to right or correct all such matters to the utmost of my ability. He wrote it in 2 separate paragraphs, really, to separate the 2 different avenues, because track A is going to go up into step 6 and 7, dealing with internal conflict. And track B, it's my rendition, he doesn't speak of it that way, is going to go through step 4 and 5, and then it's going to go on up to step 8. Now we'll get there later. But this is the first time we get a chance to see step 6 in the making. I don't know if it came out of the Oxford groups, but clearly it came out of the effort collectively between Bill W. and Ebby T. That part's clear to me. So it really, the first time it was introduced to us in a manner that we could understand it was at the same time AA went from a 6-step program to a 12-step program in 1939. Bill was able to understand this stuff better, sort it out. He had a lot of things to think about, a lot of things to experience, a lot of things guiding him. The Oxford Groups was more of a moral program. Alcoholics Anonymous dealt with the addiction portion. I believe that was an extra piece that Bill understood. There's another important point that I want to make here. When you're in the meetings looking up at the wall and seeing the 12 steps, it's easy to see them as individual pieces. But here's another viewpoint. So until we came to believe in this power greater than us, spoken through EBT, whatever that power is for you, certainly the 12-step meeting would be a part of that. And then Bill built on that. So he came to believe, and then he made a decision to turn his will and life over to the care of God as he understood him. But in step 6, he continued to build on that earlier work. He's come to believe, he's made a decision, and now in addition to those things, as part of one process, now he's become ready to have God remove the problems he finds objectionable. Again, that power can be the meetings, certainly God speaks through people, the literature, the internal review. We're going to get into other pieces later. And there may be other components out there that you have discovered this external power. Less the power is the power of alcohol. We're replacing that. That alcohol has considerable power. When that goes in my body, I'm believing in certain things about it. I'm turning my will and life over to it. And it takes me places that I don't know where. I'm not in control of it any longer. I don't know where the end is. I'm in control of this process. I choose this process, and I choose to go with people in places, things and situations that are going to help me overcome that malady. Because I'm insane when alcohol goes in me. Life, as I know it's over, somebody else is running the show. I don't know what it is. Buckus and his gang, whatever it is. It's no longer me. Now, maybe some people haven't quite got there yet. Others simply don't have a problem. It doesn't register. We're not talking about what isn't a problem, but others may have another problem that they understand how it can shape them. I hope you found that helpful. So what's going on here? Bill has done his 4th and 5th step at the hospital with EBT. He's talked to EBT in length. Now EBT's gone home. And Bill's alone. Or he's at the hospital, but he's processing what's happened. He's in a bit of a vacuum, if you will. There's a natural process going on here now. Track the energy. He's not that day going to be running about making amends. I mean, he's into that, but you get the idea. He's processing all that work that he just did. There's a natural process to that. And in step 5 in the step book at the end, what did Bill say? We're coming up on a resting spot. So in the 12 and 12, page 62, his exact words in the second half of the sentence, brings us to a resting place where we may prepare ourselves for the following steps toward a full and meaningful sobriety. So, first, we know step 6 is a resting spot. This is maybe a good opportunity to say step 1 isn't a resting spot. You don't just get to the first stair and then stop. What's happened? You admitted you got a problem? It's not a resting spot. I'm working through a couple of things there. So I hope you can see the difference there. Whereas step 6, you've done some real work. Things really are, you see, in the back of your mind and stuff, your mind's working on stuff now. Your subconscious trusts this process. It is working on a tremendous amount because you have done the math. You've input all this new information emotionally, mentally. You've processed all this information. And now Bill's story, he said he had profound experiences with the spiritual awakening. But here's a guy 10 days sober. If you're screwing off for a couple of years, not doing these steps and just going to meetings and talking, things are happening, right? They're happening if you're talking, you're going to meetings, but it's slow, and it's just such a slow process compared to getting in there and really confronting this stuff. So, otherwise said, after a couple of years, you may not report that same profound outcome because you've been working on stuff as you might in early sobriety when the stuff is handy and you can really make sense of it and start doing something about it. So, what else did Bill say in this step book? Some people still drinking until they clean house in step 5, right? Some people are still drinking until they clean house. So they're doing step 4 and 5 still drinking. Not likely doing it when they're drunk, but you get the idea. They keep relapsing and they're trying to stay sober. And step 1 just isn't enough for them. And then there's another piece of information that I find merit-worthy in the big book. In the original book, it would be page 76, and it's after step 3, and it's before step 4, and it's in how it works. And it goes like this. Though our decision, that was step 3, making whatever decision you made, your understanding, was a vital and crucial step, it could have little permanent effect. So whatever that was going on back at 1, 2, and 3, little permanent effect, unless at once followed by a strenuous effort to face step 4 and 5 and be rid of, is step 6, really 6 and 7, the things in ourselves which had been blocking us. He goes on to say, our liquor was but a symptom. So we had to get down to causes and conditions. Again, step 4. And what's important about that is we're learning that there's a kind of a thinking out there that step 1 is where you start to maybe deal with the obsession and all that. And it's really not the case. Step 6 and 7, those character defects, that's where the real magic happens. That step 6, we're going to find out, is a profoundly important step. That's where you're really doing the hard work to build a plan to look at yourself. So let's come back to Bill's creating the 12 steps. I believe that's where some of the 6 and 7 came from. In 1935, the 12 steps didn't exist yet. They came out in 1939. Clearly, Bill could see something. And at this point, he it was just broad strokes. He wasn't able to quite develop it yet. And again, we're going to look at the step book where he developed it much further. And for today, I want to impress upon you it's a tremendously important step. It's truly those character defects, anything in us that we want to change, that we don't like about ourselves. We drag that sucker up to 6 if we need to deal with it. Some of it gets dealt with in 4 and 5, mind you. And so let's just take another quick look at what he did right now with a little bit more understanding. So we've emphasized willingness is an important part. So if you're not willing to change, it's not going to go so well. And you're ready. You've done the work. You have an individual understanding of what God is for you and how that works for you. And we're going to get into that more later. And we're looking to build some willingness to have these problems removed in us. Are we ready? Have we done the work? The question is. And it suggests, should we cling to something when we'll not let go? We ask God to help us be willing. So there's going to be things maybe a little more stubborn. I use the example of a foul mouth, swearing, someone that might be swearing all the time. And well, maybe you build up a plan and you start to implement that. Maybe things don't always go as well, and you're back to step 6 again. Quitting smoking. Sometimes a process of starting and stopping. That's where step 6, you build in that plan. You've done the work. You understand why you're doing it. See, there is a natural component here. Some people have gotten to a step like this in a different capacity and simply can't articulate how they got there. But I want to show you there is a natural format to that. And again, Bill had a whole lot more information about it when he wrote the step book. It was really one of the eye openers. For a time, I felt, oh, I could just throw the step book out and operate out of the big book, honestly, and realized that it couldn't work that way. The books really work together. It took some time to develop this gift. So in 98, I created a 12-step program, and I wrote about step 6. We're done with the direct AA material today, but I'm going to read to you what I wrote in an effort to open the mind a little more if possible. So when we do go in next video into the step book and really try to expand just how important, I believe this is a 6 and 7 program when it comes to the actual stuff you want to deal with. Everything you do from 1 to 5 and everything you do from 8 to 12, I believe, supports step 6 and 7. Personal opinion, we'll see what you think as we evolve. So we're entirely ready to have God remove these defects of character. And now I'm going to read out of what I wrote in 98. Step 6 and 7, they often run hand in hand. We're just focusing on 6 today, are the direct result of doing steps 4 and 5. We will work 6 and 7 on a personal level with God, whatever your understanding is. 6 and 7 should not stand in the way of us working steps 8, 9, 10, 11, or 12. In steps 4 and 5, we learned of our character defects, wrongs, sins, shortcomings. As we spoke about them with our sponsor, many lost their power. We admitted the things we found objectionable, and some of them fell from us. There were some instincts gone astray that we just could not or would not let go of yet. Step 6 is where we look at those deeper defects and ask ourselves, can I give this up yet? Sometimes these deeper parts of our personality needed to be worked on one at a time. When we felt we were ready to have our higher power remove a defect, it will take all the willpower and effort we have to help God take it from us. Maybe you're going to put some work into it. If you want it gone, and you do 4 and 5, you've been putting some serious work into it. If I ask for help to stop swearing, lusting, lying, cheating, stealing, or being selfish, and I go on doing it, then faith without works is dead. Another way to say faith is trust in the program and the process. If these things are happening, something's missing. Here's a possible thing that could be missing. For example, in certain cases, we may find we need to do a part of step 9 before we can fully let go of something. So there's a piece of valuable information, I believe. Maybe there's an amend that needs to take place. And until that happens, you just can't let go of it because you just know something's wrong. This is also the step where we become willing to have our higher power arrest the addiction, addictive behavior, and emotional suffering. And I think that's often missed. This is the step where we're going to deal with that obsession, that craving, that craziness. That this is where all that work we've been doing, this is where it's going to happen for us. This is where it is happening. This is where it happened for me. I didn't necessarily know it. Otherwise said, I got there and couldn't tell you how. I understand far better. I can see how. I put a lot of work in. The meetings are important. They help. I talked a lot. I worked a lot with a lot of people, and I made great headway. And there is times I did my best to do a 4th and 5th step as much as I understood it. At some point I got exposed to some information with Joe and Charlie. I talked about it. Information in my head got organized. Maybe it's happening to some people with these videos. All the times I read the material and just wasn't quite understanding it, and I was confused also by how others were reporting it. Admitting and accepting our disease in step 1 and 2 gave us some relief from the obsession and compulsion. Bearing in mind, this is at this point, if you know you're alcoholic and you relapse and it's self-inflicted. I point that out. Sometimes I've seen people use it as an excuse. And so anyway, moving on. But we were now attacking the heart of the addiction, or addictive behaviors, or emotional suffering. It is very important to have a working faith in our higher power. That may be God, maybe it's the program, maybe it's the church, maybe it's all three. It's external, it's a power that can have an influence over us. And we understand that, the drunk or the drug addict, Bacchus, right? We covered Bacchus, all right. Don't tell me you don't understand Bacchus. You've been out there sucking them in. Because I'm here to tell you, you're talking to me now on that, right? I know the power of Bacchus. If you didn't see that video, Bacchus Boomerang, you go ahead and take a peek at that. And anyway, moving on. The momentum of step 4 and 5 are not necessarily revealed all at once in step 6. Another valuable piece of information that I learned. We could have more revealed days, weeks, and months later, even years later, things that just continue to clear themselves up from that work. At times I knew the results. I couldn't necessarily tell you. I couldn't necessarily explain it. I struggle to now. It was tremendous, but I knew it when it happened. We ask God to help us be willing to acknowledge new shortcomings. Hey, new things are going to come up. This is life. You'll unpeel the onion back, you'll find stuff and maybe more things or different things as you live in life. Age has an impact, right? Hey, maybe going through the change, got some frozen shoulder, coming on, and you're seeing things differently, and you're having to deal with some of that stuff, for example. Females, I'm speaking of. When we're ready to have a defect removed, then we'll want to go into step 7 right away. And we'll get into step 7 later. If the defect is very persistent, we may find ourselves back at step 6 with it temporarily and praying for strength. Then another try at step 7. If you're relapsing and you're an alcoholic, 6 and 7. If you haven't done 4 and 5, get your ass up there and go ahead and do that. And if you're struggling 6 and 7, as with cigarettes, sometimes it's a process of starting and stopping. You're building a plan, you're working that plan. This is where going to meetings, talking with your sponsor, figuring out what happened, getting into more depth if you need to, go back over. Maybe you missed some stuff in step 4 and 5. Maybe you weren't quite forthcoming, and you keep working this part. Because if you know you're an alcoholic and your life's unmanageable, well, what else do you think you're going to get back there out of that? There's just nothing there. You more research, you get the idea. So this is a form of humility, a word often confused with humiliation. To those of us who have made progress in recovery, humility is a realistic outlook or clear recognition of who and what we really are, followed by an honest and sincere attempt to become what we could be. Humiliation is to suffer a lessening of dignity or self esteem, or to be humiliated. Humiliation is not humility. And I'd like to visit humility a little bit more. Who and what I am. I began back in the day as a drunk. There was a whole lot of things that I didn't like. And what I could be. I got sober. I became something better. And it changed the first part of humility for me, because as I evolved who and what I am, and I have evolved, I hope that you see who and what I am as making a great attempt to help others with this process without reservation. As I evolved in that humility, the first side continues to grow and develop as who and what I could be becomes who I am. There becomes new what I could be. And so that's an evolving process in our lives. The steps of a lifetime journey, a natural order to help us develop the positive parts of ourselves and to let go of what isn't working for us. And, we also have to look at the people in our lives as we're changing. We have to evaluate everything, and hopefully, if we've hurt others, they're getting the help also, so we don't get better as they get sicker, for example. And hopefully, the more we learn and understand the process, we can be there for others. Well, I hope you found this helpful, and we will go into step 6 in the step book the next time and get far more deeper into some details. Thank you very much. Have a nice day.
If you found this video helpful, please like and subscribe. Ring the bell to be notified when new content is added. Also, you can support the channel 12-Step Guide with Troyo by donating through PayPal to hsworldservice@yahoo.com. In Step 6, we were entirely ready to have God remove all these defects of character. Otherwise said, we have begun to embrace true humility. We have developed a realistic understanding and clear recognition of who and what we really are. We acknowledge there are stubborn defects that did not fall from us in Step 5. We develop a deeper willingness and an action plan to take into Step 7 to free ourselves of those things blocking us from true recovery. For by now, the 9th step promises have begun to show themselves.